That looks like a bad rough stuff. God, my God. Holy my God.
Growth of the fire that we had just in 2 hours. It's almost like it exploded. It was the perfect firestorm.
What we're seeing is these remarkable fire threats. If you live there, you may or may not be warned.
Why, after 6 o'clock, after the fire left the park, at that point, why not tell everyone to leave, however you could do it?
The fire folks still thought it could be contained. Looking back, should it have been done earlier? Probably.
I've lived here in Gatlinburg since 2004. We sit next to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most visited national park in the country. Good restaurants, good beer drinking joints. It's a nice place to live. I'm standing on what used to be my house, the place where I lived. I've got this little creek. I had a beautiful deck. I had a fire pit out in my yard. I had some really great neighbors around that would come and hang out with us, you know. It was just, it was like a little community of people. You know, we'd be playing music till 1 o'clock in the morning and nobody cared because we were all here. So, I mean, it was a cool place to be. It got burnt down on November 28, 2016, in the Gatlinburg wildfires.
It likely began as a single tree igniting deep in the Great Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. Firefighters contain what they think is a routine wildfire, but with so much underbrush baked by historic drought, the Chimney Tops 2 fire burns.
It's so dark with smoke that the Christmas lights have come on.
For 5 days, officials reassure the public.
Sheriff's office.
Is the fire really a fire?
It's not a structure fire. It's a confirmed brush pile.
Oh, okay. They're going to go put it out. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Everything seemed fine on these mountains until the evening of November 28, 2016. That's when the winds really picked up, 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts, carrying embers from a nearby fire to these trees here. The families here say they went up like that, and they looked out the window, and all of a sudden they say they saw fire everywhere. For hours, no one from the county tries to send out an emergency message over TV or radio. No Amber Alert-style text message to all cell phones. It would be another failure to use the nation's emergency alert system during a mega fire. Even 911 dispatchers aren't sure who's supposed to leave.
Dispatch, can I help you?
Do we need to evacuate from here?
Ma'am, they've not given me specific areas as to exactly where they're evacuating from.
It was 6:39. The fire was roaring down this mountain behind me here, 100 feet from my back door. And that's when I got my family in the car and we got out of here. I evacuated myself. All my neighbors evacuated themselves. Yeah, the town pretty much evacuated itself.
That way! Do not go this way! You're going to run into the fire. Go west! We're trying to get everybody we can.
First responders drive into what's now an inferno, ordering people out.
Evacuate! Evacuate immediately!
Still, no alerts to cell phones. The Weather Service finally volunteered to put evacuation messages on TV and radio hours into the crisis.
Everything you're looking at here was gone. It was like a war zone, y'all. It was like a bomb went off. Now I'll show you where The old couple died. They wrecked their car and got out with their little dog, and they found them dead in the middle of the road here. It's very hard to figure out how to get off of this mountain. But you have to let a catastrophe happen, and then me speak up at a meeting and say, why don't you mark the exits, how you get off of this mountain?
Genie Brabham was a few miles from home the night these mountains lit up.
We had smoke for 2 weeks, not knowing it was that close. So we went about our day as usual, not knowing anything.
When a friend told her the mountains were burning, it was too late. The flames consumed her cabin with her 2 cats inside.
They were both 15 years old. They could have been saved if they would have let us know. But the paid officials who get paid to protect and serve didn't say a thing, just left us here to die.
14 people died in the Chimney Tops 2 wildfire. Victims included a mother and her 2 young daughters trapped on a mountain.
I don't think anyone recognized how quickly a fire like that could spread. There had never been anything of this nature, not only here, but in the eastern United States. So how quickly it moved, I think, was the key to what happened.
This was yet another fire in America where people said they did not know to evacuate until, in some cases, it was too late. We found towns and cities across this country that would likely struggle to evacuate people in a fire, and these are in areas where increasing numbers of families are moving into wooded places and where the threat of a firestorm would have at one point seemed unthinkable.
The U.S. population has been sort of deconcentrating since like the 1960s, 1970s. That area where you have housing, intermixed with or adjacent to wildland vegetation is extensive, and it's also growing quite rapidly.
Sevier County, Tennessee, where the fire broke out, has a high concentration of wildland. As of 2010, the most recent survey, there were more than 43 million homes in wildland area across the U.S., a 41% jump in 20 years. As wooded communities grow, so does the fire threat.
So many fires are caused by people, so we actually see more fire ignitions when housing development increases. You have a lot more people and homes now, potentially in harm's way.
And climate change is also creating more fires, according to the 2018 National Climate Assessment, which found wildfires are increasingly encroaching on American communities, posing threats to lives, critical infrastructure, and property.
We were afraid it's going to happen. Looks like it did. It's a matter of time, I guess.
Like many places in the U.S., Sevier County, Tennessee could not use the nation's emergency alert system built by FEMA online since 2012. The Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS, lets officials across the country send wireless emergency text alerts to all cell phones. It also activates the old-school emergency alert system, displaying messages on TVs and radios. Mark Lucero is IPAWS's chief engineer at FEMA.
What we provide to them is the ability to create a single message that reaches the public over many pathways. We want to make those systems available to the state and local governments to keep their constituents safe.
IPAWS is an especially crucial lifeline in a wildfire. That's because unlike during tornadoes and floods, the National Weather Service only issues warnings when conditions are ripe for fire, but not when flames actually break out. But Sevier County did not have IPAWS because Tennessee state emergency officials had access to the system. So the plan was always to ask the state to issue messages when necessary.
Can anybody advise the status of Mount Wall if it's been fully evacuated yet?
We've always relied on the state, as most counties in the state of Tennessee and most counties in this nation do.
But that didn't work the night of the fire. By the time the county decided to request an alert, downed power lines and cell phone tower outages made it impossible to reach the state officials who could issue cell phone alerts. A Newsy investigation found Sevier County was far from the only fire-prone area unable to send its own emergency messages through the IPAWS system. We analyzed 321 other counties with similar numbers of people living in wildland and found about 63% have IPAWS. Almost 7% are working to get online, but another 30% do not have IPAWS and are not listed as trying to get it. About 1,300 authorities have approval to use IPAWS, but that's out of more than 3,000 counties nationwide and many more cities, towns, universities, and other places that could sign up to send IPAWS emergency alerts, but haven't.
What we've seen is that there's a pretty small percentage of people who actually have access to IPAWS that are really using it. We're trying to figure out why that is.
Diana Bryant has some ideas. She's a crisis and disaster management expert at the University of Central Missouri.
The dream is unfulfilled with access to IPAWS. It's a slow adoption of this, and in some cases, maybe never being adopted.
For one thing, it costs money.
You're talking about spending money on something that you might not ever use. It is a hard decision to make financially for local government, especially when we have fire departments that don't even have an internet connection.
FEMA requires governments to use a third-party alerting software to access IPAWS. That costs $28,000 for Sevier County and can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for major cities. If cost is a factor, why not design a system that people can access for free and they don't need that third-party software?
So today, FEMA does not have alerting software to provide to the state and local governments.
Then there's the FEMA training on the system. Often an authority will start the process but never finish it.
To place a lot of time and energy into mastering a system like IPAWS is just not a high priority, because it is something that hopefully they think they'll never use.
And places that have IPAWS don't always activate it during a wildfire. 85 people died in last year's Camp Fire in Paradise, California. It was the deadliest, most destructive fire in the state's history. Burned bodies found in cars provided tragic evidence of attempts to flee that came too late. Officials tried to use IPAWS, but the software was not set up correctly. A similar story a year earlier during the Tubbs Fire in California. No IPAWS alerts in Sonoma County, 22 dead.
Okay. Hop in. In the back. Get in.
Like in Tennessee, first responders went door to door to order people out.
It's time to go right now because I'm leaving. Okay. Your family's in there? Yeah, we have other people. Well, go get them.
As in the Camp Fire, Sonoma County officials had IPAWS but failed to use it. An after-action report blamed lack of training.
What I've found is that there are a lot of people who are nervous about using it. So nervous, perhaps they neglect to even consider it.
For 38 minutes yesterday, people feared that there was a missile flying through the air and about to hit Hawaii. And it's because
last year in Hawaii, an emergency official using IPAWS mistakenly sent an alert about an incoming ballistic missile. Massachusetts is so freaked out about an errant alert that the state emergency manager says it's one reason he has forbidden cities and counties from issuing their own IPAWS warnings. FEMA says better training and technical enhancements to the IPAWS system are coming. There is still the public's lack of knowledge about the growing threat of wildfire. After getting an alert, there are those who choose to stay put.
So, what's your plan?
Just in here with a hose.
You're gonna fight it out?
I'm gonna fight it out.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
The fire is 1 row house is over. It's coming at us. Okay?
It's huge. It's one of the biggest I've ever seen.
Please. We
It's
need
not
to get
worth
you out
it.
of here. Please get in the car and leave.
A year after the fire in the Smokies, Sevier County reached out to FEMA to get access to the IPAWS system, spending money on the software and training multiple people on it.
We went through the process that we had to do and also got the federal government to approve that system.
Do you have a direct line to your people, to your residents?
That's correct.
Officials also installed evacuation signs Genie Brabham requested to help people find their way down the mountains, and put up new emergency sirens. This was the scene on Joel Poole Street after the fire, while he, his wife, and daughter all made it out of the fire alive. Almost everything they owned turned to ash. One of the few things found in the rubble of their home was his wife's wedding band. He now keeps it on a key ring.
You can see it. You can still see some of the soot inside that got burned up. Feel sad, feel bad about it. You know, this was such a vibrant area, community. I was pissed. I was pissed forever, but I've just gotten over it. It's not worth the stress.
Genie Brabham rebuilt her home, now surrounded by scorched, dead trees. She adopted a new cat, Jambalaya.
He's a special breed. He's a Devon Rex. They have short hair and they don't shed, and they have a great personality.
But unlike Joel Poole, she's not willing to forgive the failures of Sevier County to alert people the night of the fire.
I can't get over it. 40-year mayor Larry Waters left us to die in the wildfires. Why shouldn't they be accountable when they had all these warning signs?
There are definitely folks out there that really hold you personally responsible for what happened. That has to weigh on you.
It concerns me, but I can tell you this. I think myself, the other officials, and all of the emergency personnel, considering the information that we had at the time, did everything we could within our power to save lives and property.
It's unbelievable. 11 million visitors a year. One of the busiest. The most visited. You should have everything lined up. The alert system, the alarm system. It was too late.